It's late winter at Studland Bay on the Dorset coast. Waders search for food along the high water mark. The bar-tailed godwits have overwintered here. Others of their kind have already begun the return journey to their Scandinavian breeding grounds. The beaches are deserted, offering no comfort to holiday makers and few pickings for the birds. It's not until the warmer days of spring that the beach at Studland bustles with activity. The bathers are not alone in their search for a place to spread out in the sun. In the nearby heather and dunes live some of Britain's rarest animals. A brightly colored male sand lizard soaks up the warmth of the sun, while a secretive smooth snake glides off to find a new hiding place. Studland is one of the very few places in Britain where all 6 of our native species of reptile can be found. As well as smooth snakes and sand lizards, this is the habitat of grass snakes, adders, slow worms, and common lizards. It might well be called a resort for reptiles. Studland Heath is 1,500 acres of lakes, marsh, woodland, heath, and dunes. Most of this area didn't exist before the 16th century. The sand dunes have built up over the last 400 years, a result of the action of waves and wind. The heathland that is developed on the dunes is a vital refuge for wildlife. This is a type of habitat that is fast disappearing. In 1962, English nature decided to protect what little was left by declaring Studland Heath a National Nature Reserve. Animals like the grass snake, once a common sight throughout Britain, are now restricted to tiny pockets of suitable damp habitat. At almost 4 feet long, it's the largest of our 3 species of snake. It's equally at home on land and in water. Its diet includes newts, toads, and fish. But its favorite prey, the common frog, is not found on Studland Heath. The black and yellow V-shaped collar behind the grass snake's head often leads to it being mistaken for the venomous adder, but unlike the adder, it's completely harmless. Snakes have poor eyesight and even poorer hearing. They're effectively deaf. Instead, they feel vibrations in the ground through the undersides of their body. They can sense the approach of human footsteps many yards away. Their sense of smell is highly developed. The tongue plays an important part in picking up a scent. A snake's tongue is long and forked. While the reptile is active, it flicks its tongue quickly in and out of its mouth. This is in slow motion. Particles from the ground or from the air are picked up on the tips of the tongue and transferred to the Jacobson's organ in the roof of the mouth. In this way, the snake can sense prey or a mate or danger. It beats a swift retreat. Growing reptiles must periodically shed their skins. Snakes slough off the whole outer layer in one piece. Every detail of the snake's body is left behind in the shed skin, which is turned inside out, like a discarded sock. You can even see the transparent shields that protected its eyes. On Studland Heath, April and May are the best months to see our only venomous snake. The adder, or viper, is Britain's commonest snake, but it's very shy and seldom seen. These adders emerged from hibernation about a month ago. They are now ready to mate. The male, smaller and more brightly colored than the female, tracks down his mate by scent. Before they mate, the male must first court the female. Courtship can last for several hours or even days. During this time, the pair is often interrupted by an intruding male. The courting male responds by chasing the intruder. The two of them race off through the undergrowth to engage in the ritualistic dance of the adders. Each male tries to force his rival down to the ground by twisting his body around him. As the forces build up between them, the snakes often spring apart. The wrestling match is interspersed with elaborate swaying movements as the adders hold their heads high off the ground. They never attempt to bite each other during these contests. Even if they did, the venom would have little effect. Eventually, one of the snakes, usually the smaller, retreats. The winner approaches the female, still coiled in the grass nearby. He moves over and around her, jerking his head and flicking his tongue. But she seems indifferent to his advances. Once the pair has mated, the female adder retains the fertilized eggs within her body. They will hatch there, and the young will be born fully formed in late August or September. Like a grass snake, an adder has scales with a ridge or keel down the center. The only other British species of snake lacks this ridge, and that's how it got its name. The smooth snake is one of our rarest wild animals. It lives only on a handful of sandy heaths in the south of England. Smooth snakes are so small and secretive that it's difficult to guess how many of them there are. The species is so rarely seen that it wasn't discovered until 1853 in Britain. Later it was found right across Europe as far as Russia. Its favorite prey is small mammals and lizards, which are in plentiful supply on Studland Heath. Like the grass snake, the smooth snake is completely harmless to humans. As spring turns into summer, the warmth of the sun brings Studland's wealth of reptiles out into the open. This animal looks like a snake, but it's a lizard, a legless lizard called a slowworm. The long, sinuous body and the flicking tongue are very snake-like, but the eye gives the game away. Snakes don't have eyelids, so they can't blink, but lizards do. There's invisible evidence inside. The slowworm skeleton has the remains of the bones which once supported front and hind limbs. Legless lizards evolved from ancestors with legs, adapting to an underground existence. Since then, they have evolved to live on the surface again, adopting the typical snake-like way of moving. In summer, the heath attracts a host of insect visitors. A migrant painted lady butterfly drinks nectar from the flowers. It's probably flown across the channel from France. Bees, too, find plenty of food among the blossoms. The insects attract predators. Spiders are very common on the heath. Spiders, and grasshoppers too, are an important part of the diet of some of Studland's reptiles. The common lizard is found all over the nature reserve. Reptiles are often called cold-blooded, but the temperature of an active common lizard is about the same as our own. It relies on the sun for heat, flattening its body to absorb more of the warming rays. When it's warm enough, it can carry on with the normal daily activities of lizard life. Every so often it pauses to bask, to top up its body temperature. Most lizards have a tiny third eye, called the pineal, on top of their head. It measures the strength of the sunlight, playing an important role in temperature control. The common lizard has a relative, larger, more brightly colored, and much rarer, called the sand lizard. Like the smooth snake, it is now found only in a few areas of dunes and heaths. Studland is ideal for it. The female stays the same color all year round, but in the breeding season, the head and body of the male turn bright emerald green. He sets up a territory within which he courts any passing females and drives off other males. Like snakes, lizards shed their skin, but they have to rub it off piece by piece against rocks and plants. This female has climbed up a gorse bush to use the prickles to help her molt. In June or July, the sand lizard lays as many as 8 pearly white eggs in a hole in the sand. Their shell is not hard, but leathery. The eggs expand as they soak up water from the sand. They will develop during the next 2 months, incubated by the warmth of the sun. Even in a typically cloudy British summer, Studland has its fair share of sunshine. By late July, the summer is at its height. The female common lizards are bloated with young. Unlike the sand lizard, the common lizard retains its eggs inside its body. The young are born in a transparent membrane from which they immediately break free. Some of the lizards have already given birth. The youngsters, 1.5 inches long, are wriggling through the heather. They're miniature versions of their parents, but much darker in color. They spend their first few hours of life basking in the sun. A female common lizard gives birth to between 8 and a dozen young, depending on her size. They'll disperse after a few days to feed. They must almost double their size if they're to survive the winter. The sand lizard eggs are now ready to hatch at the bottom of their hole in the dune. One of the young has already ripped through the leathery eggshell using a special egg tooth on the end of its snout. It takes its first few breaths of air before breaking completely free. Within hours of appearing on the surface, the hatchling sand lizards are feeding. Spiders and tiny insects are their main food. Like the young common lizards, they must grow fast if they are to survive their first winter. Like their parents, they're active hunters, eating almost anything they can overpower. They pause occasionally to bask. The dark-edged spots covering their bodies provide good camouflage, especially among the heather flowers. At just under 2 inches long, they have to remain as inconspicuous as possible. A lizard this size could be eaten by almost anything. Even their own parents wouldn't hesitate to make a meal of them. An adult female grass snake does not present a threat to the young sand lizards. She feeds mainly in or near water. She laid her eggs among rotting vegetation in early July. Now, some 10 weeks later, in mid-September, they're ready to hatch. Some nesting sites are used year after year by several females, each one producing a bundle of as many as 20-inch-long eggs. Like the baby sand lizards, the hatchling grass snakes have a tiny egg tooth on their snouts with which they rip through the tough eggshell. Already they're flicking their tongues as they begin to learn about their new environment. Most of the eggs hatch within a few days of each other. As some nests may contain several hundred eggs, reports of plagues of baby snakes are not uncommon. It's a tight fit within the 1-inch egg. A baby grass snake is over 5 inches long. Each already has the distinctive black and yellow marking behind its head. Within a day or so of hatching, the young grass snake sheds its skin. Until it has done this, it stays in the nest, but when the molt is complete, it will leave to begin feeding. For a year or two, it will live on earthworms and young amphibians. The first of the young slow worms also hatch in September. They're about 3 inches long and a handsome golden bronze in color. This female has just produced another baby, one of about a dozen, each wrapped in a transparent membrane. The head and the coiled body are clearly visible inside. Within minutes, it's broken free and is heading for the nearest cover. At this age, it looks just like an earthworm, ripe for the eating. Many birds eat baby slowworms, as do frogs, toads, and even sand lizards. The babies must be quick if they're to survive. The baby is a perfect miniature of its parents. It will reach adulthood in 6 years, and with luck, it will live to be well over 20. Adders, too, give birth to fully formed young, which break free from their membranes at birth or very soon after. A female produces 8 or 10 pencil-sized babies each year. Like young grass snakes, the adders shed their skins soon after they're born. Even at this size, they have the colors of an adder, dark zigzag markings on a lighter background. Their poison apparatus is already fully developed. Although their fangs are quite small, their venom is just as potent as their parents'. An adder bite is rarely fatal to a human, but it's extremely painful, and even the babies should be treated with the greatest respect. To a small mammal, a bite means a swift death. The adder finds its prey by a combination of scent and sight. Here, the adder's prey is a bank vole. The snake relies on surprise when it attacks. A vole could easily outrun a snake. The adder strikes. Adder venom is a powerful heart depressant, causing death from cardiac failure. The snake follows the scent trail of the dying vole. The venom has to act quickly, or the prey will move too far before it collapses. The adder examines the vole to find which is the head end and begins to swallow it. Snakes usually swallow their prey head first. The shape of the head and the way the limbs fold back along the body makes it much easier. It works its mouth over the vole, first one side and then the other. The snake's jaw is only loosely joined at the front, giving it an enormous gape. The elastic skin beneath the scales allows the adder to swallow prey much wider than itself. Within a few minutes, the vole has completely disappeared. The adder helps the food on its way by brushing the bulge in its body against a nearby twig. Over the next 2 or 3 days, the venom inside the vole's body will help the snake to digest it. None of Britain's reptiles is unique to these islands. They are found also across much of Central Europe. But wherever they are found, the heathland on which most of them rely is disappearing rapidly because people regard it as waste ground. Stadland is a popular resort for holidaymakers, but to animals like the smooth snake and the sand lizard, it's a vital refuge, essential to their survival.